Hello, my little Dis teapods. Did you miss me? I missed you. I just got back from my very first excursion to the one and only Sundance Film Festival. And if you haven't already, you can catch my coverage on Amplitude Media Group's page, as well as my personal page coming up very soon. And there is lots to catch up on. I can't wait to dive right in. As for today's episode, I have the one and only Jillian Mercado from the L Word joining us, Media Access Award winner, and more. She is a native of Los Angeles, and there has been some time between my first episode and this one for not only Sundance, but also in respect to the fires in California. In honor of Jillian, if you could please donate to the Eaton Fires, I will provide a link in the bio and description of this episode as well. Thank you. Content warning, disabled joy, queer joy, and so many spoilers from the L Word you're probably going to understand what the show's about if you haven't already found out. Also bodily fluids, but that in mind, the flu is going around and I'm not gonna lie, I did have COVID again. So please, wash your hands, stay safe, and advocate like hell, my friends. Section 504 is under scrutiny, and we can use your help now more than ever. Please advocate, 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 and stay well. Peace and love.
All right. Thank you again so much for being here with me today, Jillian. How are you?
I'm doing so well. Thank you for having me, Melanie. Melanie is my sister's name.
I love
So,
that. And you
hmm
told me that when we met this year at the Easter Seals Disability Film Challenge, which I'd been following you for quite a while online. And of course, like internet friends in the disability world is a big thing. So when we finally met in person, I was like, oh my God, I've been waiting for this moment. I'm Melanie. And you said, that's my sister's name. It was like kismet. It was perfect.
I,
And is
I
she
love that.
older or is she younger?
She's younger. I'm the oldest of three.
I'm also an older sister. I have a younger
No
brother.
way.
Matthew. Yeah. But I love that you have a Melanie. There's so few of us. That's also what I told you. There's not very many
hmm
Melanies. And you just told me you're East Coast by nature.
Born and raised in New York.
And now you're an LA girly.
Yep. I've been here for like 7 years now.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's amazing. And you've had quite a big career for yourself after moving out there, or was that before? Did you start on the East Coast or did you come out and just hit the ground running?
No, actually, I was more involved in the fashion background. So that's where my career initially started was the fashion universe. And then upon moving to California, I became one of those like statuses or statistics where it's like moves to California once, gets an acting job. And that's literally what happened verbatim.
I knew that you started in the fashion world though, because I've been following some disabled fashion people. Erin Phillips, oh my
Yeah.
goodness, who is such an icon and just posed for Vogue and all these things. And I think Erin made a post thanking you.
Yeah, I do my best to keep in contact as much as possible, with, like, that side of my world,
Mhm.
because it's always been a passion of mine. I've always felt seen, heard. I can be, like, as quirky as possible. I could be as nerdy as possible. I could just be, like, myself to my core,
Mhm.
and, sometimes fashion is perceived at such a microscopic level that sometimes it's intimidating.
Mhm.
But it's where I shine the most, I think, because it's
Right.
the first place that I felt like I can be myself because there's other people that are also being themselves. And it's they don't, not that they don't care what anybody thinks, but they own themselves pretty pridefully. And I don't know, I find strength in that a lot. So I feel less judged in that world for sure.
Yeah, especially when you start there and then move into the
Yeah.
acting world, which it's
Yeah.
all about putting on a persona, right? And it's all putting that on. But it's kind of funny. You have the Cameron Diaz experience of being the
Yeah.
model and then going into the world. And I feel like Cameron Diaz is also big in comedy. And then here's you as well. And you get to embody that. So tell me a little bit about the experience of the L Word. Were you involved with the show? Like, did you watch the show before you were on it at all?
Yeah, funny enough, when I got the email asking, for myself to audition for the role, the first image that came into my mind was, like, me in like college or high school hiding under the covers of my bed to watch the L Word because my mother, in this instance, did not want me to watch this kind of television. But I was, like, so I don't know, it was something about the drama and the messiness and the experiences that, these women would go through that, like, gravitated me towards it. Little queer Jillian did not know she identified with the community back then. But there were little now thinking back, there were little moments where I'm like, "Huh." So the universe knew, but Jillian didn't know yet. She didn't know the name, you know?
Right.
So yeah, so when I did get the email, it was such like a circle experience. And yeah, and being on set was beautiful and getting to know all the OG characters were like I don't know, in a way I was, like, doing it for my younger self, and it was really, really beautiful, and my character is a lot like myself. Like, the showrunner, and the directors that were, attached to the show would always tell me, "How would Jillian do in this situation? Like, how would she do in this situation?" I was like, "You sure you want Okay." So a lot of, like, the humor comes from, like, me improving at the moment or comes from, like, just my real true life experience that I was able to play out as somebody else. So,
Wonderful. Oh, I love that so much. So
yeah.
I hadn't seen the L Word before this, like I said. So I
Yeah.
actually just got through season 1, and I'm going to give those who are watching or listening to this the spoiler alert right now. But I was so impressed that you get to be an immigration lawyer. Full stop. Like, and I love that you are a character that has the brains to be able to discern different things, but you still have that comical element to it, which I love that you just said that there's a lot of improv to do with that as well. And that's great that they take your input of what would the character do in these instances. And I'm excited to keep watching through seasons 2 and 3. And I wanted to know, you don't have to give me big spoilers, but do we see a little bit more into your character's life as this goes on? And since they're asking you about how you would respond, I'm curious.
Oh, yeah, I think immediately in season 2, you get a lot more of Jillian. A lot more of Jill I mean, Maribel, sorry, Jillian is me. A lot more
S
of my character. I am I am and I think that there's, like, 10 episodes in season 2. I'm in
Mhm.
8, if I'm not mistaken. So, I'm in a good chunk. You get to know more about, like, her dynamics with her sister. You get to get a sneak peek of her love life and her family, that it's very much, like, not only my family, but how the Latin community in general holds very close to their family, and the things that are said in the family have consequences and also, stems deep, deep inside from, like, foundation of love. Um,
Sure.
yeah. So, yes. The short answer is yes. You you will see a lot about my character.
About Mirabelle as we go through it. So, yeah, as a
Yeah.
fellow Latina queer woman, just seeing that dynamic kind of play out. I wasn't very close with my Latino family growing up. It was
Okay.
mostly my Jewish family, but same thing. It's like, yeah, it's all very tight knit, very, you know, what's going on in everybody's lives. And I see
Mhm.
that a lot in your characters. And it's just so beautiful to see that blossoming and then letting your input bleed into the life of Mirabelle. I love those things that, on set, it's not just, well, you're the character that's there and you're signifying X, Y, and Z, but that's the element of the L word as a whole. It's very politically forward on purpose,
Mhm,
which we don't
mhm.
get a lot of. There's not a lot of that in TV.
No.
Not enough.
I
And I
know.
love that you said too that there are some elements of intimacy that come out in season 2.
Mhm,
And that's kind of the
mhm,
purpose of this podcast to be just like a space to talk about the things that we really want to see in entertainment that we're not
mhm,
seeing happening, but to be at the helm of something like that and to get to, really be the painter and saying, yes, this is what would be truthful to me is such a
mhm.
gift that not all of us get. I mean, there are interpretations for sure, which I know we talked a little bit about Wicked, which I love the musical. I don't know about you, but you are a New York City girly. So had you seen the Broadway show Wicked before it came out?
Yeah, actually, I was very much the, like, New Yorker who was like, "Ugh, musicals. Why? I don't like musicals. They're, like, singing every 5 seconds of, like, the show. Can there just be, like, more dialogue?" And in college, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was sophomore or junior year, my professor at the time took us to watch Wicked on Broadway.
Oh.
I came out distraught. I came out like a new person. The way I was crying, the way my whole body metamorphosized into the woman that I am today was a real thing. I mean, I remember like, end of act 2, even I don't end of act 1, but definitely end of act
Mhm.
2. I was like hyperventilating, crying. I needed a second after the show to gather myself together, and then from there, it was the start of, like, me giving Broadway a shot, and
Oh,
I think I've been to, like, 7 other Broadway shows after that one,
wow.
whether that's, like, on Broadway or off Broadway shows, but I fell in love with the craft, I fell in love with the vulnerability, I fell in love with, like, the storytelling and
Mhm.
how beautiful it is to tell a story in these not only, like, literally in, like, 2 or 3 hours, but also, like, coming into it not knowing what can happen and just performing for an
Yeah.
audience, It's just the most wow, it's the most amazing I couldn't do it. I say today, like, I don't know if I have the gravitas for Broadway, but, like, I give it up to them. So, yeah, and then when I came here, I was just talking to my friend about this. We walked by there's a theater, I forgot what the theater is called. It's on Hollywood Boulevard, and they were showing Wicked. And we passed by it, and I was just, like, gushing about how amazing the show was, and he's like, "I've never seen Wicked before," and I was like, "How can you live on this planet not knowing the most beautiful art form there is in this world?" And we literally went to watch the show in that hour.
Oh my god.
I had to.
Oh,
I couldn't continue my life knowing that a good friend of mine had the audacity to never watch Wicked.
you have to
So
change that.
and I kid you not, he needed a second after the show 'cause he didn't understand what just happened, and I was like, "Yeah, I understand. Take your time. I
Mhm,
get it.
mhm.
I know.
Right, right.
I've been there." So yes, I did watch it twice on Broadway, and then I got the opportunity a few weeks ago to watch the movie, and it was I had my thoughts. I wrote an essay on how important for me it was to make sure that I was coming into it with open arms
Mhm.
and coming into it with a sense of I have faith that Marissa and John Chu have treated this very delicately because I did
Yes.
have my notes on the Broadway version, specifically on Nessa Rose. You
Mhm.
know, as much as I love The Wicked, like, that part always like, that was my response every time. Um, and I came into it like that, and I think that the so many reasons why the movie was, like, a 20 out of 10 for me, but her part specifically, how they cared for it, how they took it to the, next level, how they even cast it. I
Mhm.
was one of the girls who auditioned to be, Nessa Rose during that time. It
Oh
was
my
like a
gosh.
3 to 4 month situation. I wasn't sure, we weren't sure, um, but I met her yesterday for the first time, actually,
Oh my
and I was
gosh.
telling her how thankful I am that it was her, and I don't think that there could have been a better person to play her. She did her justice, and if anything, she literally cured my frustration on the show.
Oh, good.
Um, yeah, because I knew that there could be a different way to tell her story and still be true to the real story, but, like, not make her look like she's about to, like, have some, like, suicidal tendency, even though pun
Mhm.
intended, if you know, you know on the second part. But you know what I mean? Like,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
So Nessa Rose, for anybody who isn't familiar with Wicked, has never been played by a disabled woman on Broadway. So
Mm-mm.
Marissa, literally, this was history in the making. So I love that you met her yesterday. I actually met Cecily over the summer. And she was at
Ah,
Disability Film Challenge because she was in
oh,
Body Swap. So
okay.
didn't know that this was her. And I have a video promo coming out for my other podcast where we're on the red carpet and I'm giving her like rapid fire questions. And I said, "What is your favorite color?" And she gave me orange and pink and blue. And then she's dancing like she already healed me, like to start with. And then people are saying, like, well, baby Nessa is healing. All of it is healing to younger us who were theater lovers, first of all.
Yeah.
I was not disabled when I saw Wicked on Broadway. So I actually didn't like it, but I
Okay.
am I am a
That's
self-identified
fair.
theater snob, and I didn't even ask, "Where did you get to go to school?"
Yeah, FIT. So
Oh, okay.
Fashion Institute of Technology.
You
Yeah,
were
New
in the
York.
city. So I went to
Yeah.
Rutgers, which was an hour
Okay.
outside of the city, and there's a
Mhm.
class where every Wednesday we would see a show. So I
Okay.
did that for 2 years as a teaching assistant and saw a lot of Broadway. And Wicked for me, I love the music. The music for me is everything. We sang in high school choir, and there were all these like deep connections in the music that as a musician, I love so much. In Act Two, I could write a novel about how beautiful that is, which I think that's why I didn't like it on Broadway was because
Mm.
I'd been listening to the soundtrack for as long as I had memorized it all, but we sat in the orchestra and
Mhm.
love live music, but all I heard was orchestra and it
Mhm.
just wasn't
Mhm.
for me. The movie cured me of that. I love it. I already love part two without seeing it, but I know I'm going to cry
Same.
harder.
Mhm.
I'm going to
Mhm.
cry harder
Mhm.
when part two
Mhm.
comes out. Once they
Mhm.
start
Mhm.
singing the startup music for good is going to hit me.
Don't even.
I will
Don't.
be in the aisle.
Sobbing.
It'll be just like, it's gonna turn into a water park with all of the rivers.
Mhm. And you know what? Get ready. Get your boats ready because I don't know I'm not stopping.
I will be unwell. It's a promise.
Right.
It is one big promise. And then I know that you posted also, we were talking about how, John Chu was carrying the responsibility of Marissa. They built her that
Mhm.
custom wheelchair for the movie, which they then hoisted into the air. No big deal. But you posted that you were watching one of my favorite shows, Silo. And they do something similar where they outfit the wheelchair. Tell me a little bit about what you felt when you saw that. Cause I was like,
It was amazing. I mean, to give you another spoiler on the L word, when I was on it, there is a period piece that an episode goes into a period piece. It's more like a dream. Actually, just kidding. It's more of a hallucination that the girls go through, and I'm in the hallucination. And
yeah,
I take you back to the 1960s, and it was very crucial to me, at least, that if I was going to go back in time, my chair had to go back in time. So the art department and I like put our heads together and I researched myself because I took responsibility. I was not supposed to have the responsibility, but I took it upon myself to have the responsibility to be like as correct, historically correct as possible. And I searched the first wheelchair ever made, the first electric wheelchair ever made, and
oh,
we
wow.
copied it. Yes, we copied it, so on in that scene, when you see it, that is not my chair. That is an electric chair that we took apart, that Showtime bought, took apart, and we created it into a 1960s wheelchair.
That is
So, going
insane.
back to Silo, that's exactly how it should be made. Wicked Silo, I mean, I feel like there's no excuse for not having someone who has a disability in any fictional, especially, and I'm going to say that one more time, fictional world, to not also create a chair that can be a part of this fictional world. You know what I mean?
100%.
There's
Absolutely.
no excuses. So it was I saw him and I was like, "Oh my god, I love that they did this. I love that this was a thought that was discussed," you know? And his part in that episode wasn't
Mhm.
like 30 minutes long, but it was important. You know, it
Yes.
was important to see. It was important to see that his character that lived in the section that he lived in, Silo, would have this type of mechanical looking contraption kind of a chair. I paused it like 20 different times and I'm like, I kind of want this chair. I kind of want to bring this chair to life.
I watched your story, I think, like 5 times, and I was like, "Wait, wait," and then I was, like, holding the screen to be like, "Oh my god," the even, like, the wheel,
Beautiful.
every
It's
part of it,
beautiful.
it is. For, like, an industrial chair, it's gorgeous. And I think it's supposed to
Very,
be, like,
very.
close to the furnace, so, like, it needs to be hefty in that way,
Yeah.
and there's something beautiful
It
about
it
that.
was giving steampunk, and I had a steampunk moment when I was young, so it really took me there.
Well, and then you went to FIT, so you love all of those elements to begin with, and
Mm.
then, like,
Mhm.
to be and you weren't just in fashion, by the way, we're talking about fashion earlier. You were avant-garde fashion girly, like, full out to think of not just being the person in the outfit coming down the runway in a wheelchair. What if, like, from head to toe, like, every little detail, including the chair itself, was an art piece? I think we need more
Correct.
of that. Yes,
I
exactly.
agree.
It's
I
all
agree.
interpretation. That's what it's up to. And even the role of Nessa in the Broadway show, I'm
Mhm.
reading the audiobook now. She was born without arms. She is not a
No
wheel yeah,
way.
and I'm like, if they can refit it for
Huh.
Broadway in this way, and Ashley Eakin and I talked about this, if productions come into something and say, "At the top, we wanna budget this in," then you can, I call it the Army Hammer in, The Social Network, where they put his
Mm.
head on twins and they made him twins. If you can do that, you can
Yes.
grow me an arm.
Oh, I talk about that all the time, especially because of budgets. They love to
Mhm.
put budget as an excuse, and I'm like, "Let's just sit with this for a moment because is it me or did we create a whole movie that Brad Pitt, when reversed age, but I mean and the way I mean is, like, they were able to put money aside for that CGI, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
So there's no excuse for not hiring someone who maybe didn't have a disability at the beginning of the movie and then has one at the end of the movie. We can easily CGI it.
Do it
We
the
can
other
we
way.
can CGI it. We can CGI it. There's a budget for that. If we actually meaningfully, consciously put that in the top of priority.
100%. And yeah, it's the same thing with the fashion world. Is like, well, we people are
Mhm.
now like, wait a minute, we didn't think about how we need to have pockets in the sides of people's like on their legs instead of
Totally.
because I work in adaptive fashion where that's
Mhm.
something that was a part of the conversation. It's not an afterthought.
Mhm.
It's what you think of ahead of time. You need
From
to
the
anticipate
beginning.
these things exactly from the top.
Mhm.
So thinking of that too, I know that the first season of the L Word started right before COVID hit. How did that
Mm.
kind of impact things in the creative process, especially for
Yeah,
you specifically?
it was hard for everyone. We were all like chickens with no heads during this time. We had no idea what to do. But I think for me, I struggled with, disease or whatever would affect me in my disability. Would it
Mhm.
progress it? Would it slow it down? Question mark. Would it, now I have 3 legs. Like what would what would happen, And because there was little to no information, it was really scary. It was really scary to know what could happen. And I got it once. And since then I've gotten it once, you know?
Yep.
I stay silent because I'm not sure. But,
Same. Literally
yeah, so
same.
it was really hard, but thankfully, at least working during that time, the isolation that we had to do was big, and if you've seen the first generation of L Word, is a very intimate show.
Yes, it is.
There's a lot of fluids, let's just say. There's a lot
Mhm.
of touching. There's a lot of, like, togetherness, closeness, if I may
Huh.
say. So there was a moment where I was like, "Should we be doing this show?" Because it's not like the foundation of the L word is relationships and sex,
100%.
period. Sure, it's about family. Sure, it's about finding yourself. Sure, it's about, but like what makes the L word separate from everybody else is like queer joy in relationships, queer joy in like romantic partners or not romantic, but it's still that like fluid exchange, I want to say, So it was scary. It was a little frightening. But we had like a lot, like at a time, I think we almost had maybe 3 to 4 medics on set,
Wow.
at all time, making sure that we always had a face mask when they
Uh-huh.
yelled cut or when they were changing scenes, like, nobody was allowed to not have one, and if you got caught without one, you were reprimanded, so they were very, very strict.
Wow.
Our lunches were separate, we couldn't, like, mingle during
Mm.
lunchtime, so it was
Oh,
hard. Yeah, it was really hard, but at the same time it was the right thing to do at that time,
for sure. Oh, yeah.
And I'd rather do that than, like, some weird situation happens where everybody gets sick, you
Yeah,
know?
that's God forbid that's the way that it goes. I think for me too, going back to set and like you were saying, like lunchtimes, especially, that's when you get to create those kind of bonds with your cast
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
producers and the people who are behind the scenes. So for me, that was something I really missed about it. And it was kind of like somebody wrote what SAG after posted, like, what do you love about being on set? And I'm like, well, it's
Mm,
a fleeting community. For a moment, it's just this family that you have who understands the perils of the 16-hour days that you're putting in day after day. And they understand you as a person, how you are functioning and flowing, and what they can do for you.
yeah.
And I'm not sure with you, I didn't really need personally an access coordinator or
Mhm.
access on set, but I've had
Yeah,
students of mine with developmental disabilities on set who need
sure,
break times, who have to self
sure,
advocate for those things.
sure.
So people kind of getting to know you on those levels, like that's its own level of intimacy as well. It's not
Mhm.
just what we see as the end product on the L word, which is those juicy little moments, literally juicy.
Mhm.
It's it's literally getting to know people on that level of, yes, I'm a person showing up to work. I care for you. You care for me. This is the agreement. So it's important for us to still stay conscious and care for one another at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm excited for when I go back and watch
Mhm.
seasons 2 and 3 of The L Word. And are you currently filming for more? Is there more to come, do you know, as of right now? Can you say anything?
No, we did cancel the show
Oh, I didn't know. Spoiler
2
alert for
years
me.
ago. I
Oh, honey.
know, and so I
Yeah.
just want to in advance apologize for the way it ends.
Oh, no.
Specifically, there will be questions that you're like, "Well, this is great."
Oh, oh, how awful. I hate
So,
when that happens. That happens to
yeah,
too many good shows, unfortunately. Plus the climate of
yeah.
what life on set is right now where work is scarce. Like it's dry.
Mhm.
It is dry out there.
She's a desert right
She
now,
is.
but there is hope.
There's
I'm
hope that it
hopeful.
will rain.
Yeah,
We will make it rain upon you. I hope we see
very
more of you
much.
in the fashion world. Do you have any like thoughts of how you would move forward in fashion from here? Are you
Yeah.
thinking
Oh my
maybe
god.
what does the world have in store for Jillian next?
My fashion girly side never leaves my side. She wakes up with me, she eats with me, she takes a shower with me. She's there at all time. She's here right now.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, I've been working, probably since COVID, but more so now more than ever doing an adaptive line. So I am entering the zone of creating what I believe should have been happening a very long time ago, and
Mhm.
that's a whole other conversation in itself, but I do believe that through the experiences that I have, through the schooling that I went through, to the connections that I have, and just personal experience myself, that I don't know, I've set a bar high for myself, so I'm really excited,
Yeah,
to when the time comes to, like, officially announce it so everyone can see.
incredible. I'm excited to see that come out, and I hope that
Yeah,
that's really fruitful for you because that from just being somebody who models those clothes, there is a
yeah,
market for that. Like it people want it.
big. Yeah.
Big market. It's untapped, and to get at that right now, like, this is the sweet spot, this is the time to get on that train, and for those who don't
Mhm.
know what adaptive fashion is yet, like, start looking at it, start thinking about it because you're right. Lived experience, there is no cost for that. Like that is
Mhm.
priceless in your
Mhm.
input and in the way that you're thinking about the people who are wearing these clothes are going to feel in them
Mhm.
too. Ugh, I
Yeah,
love
and
that for you.
it's important, like, going back to Wicked, but it's important to get that authentic representation where it's not paid for, it's not forced, you don't have to study it, and I think that until we have enough situations like this, we need to be the ones driving that ship. Like, there is no other way, and, there's many times that I do get frustrated when, like, actors or, things come out that in behind the scenes, there isn't a disabled representative
Mhm.
gearing that situation
Mm,
because it's always being told by someone who's assuming what we struggle with or what
yes,
we find amazing or what we love or, what we need. And I think until we have like millions of, situations where we're the one spearheading, the examples they're not there. We need to make the examples happen. So,
absolutely. And that's
yeah.
incredible. And you're a trailblazer in so many ways too. And I have a
Mhm.
note that I wanted to congratulate you on your Media Access Award.
Oh, thank
When
you. And yeah, those moments I hold very close because for the longest time, it's hard to feel comfortable in a space where people have told you again and again and again, having joy about being disabled is not like a real thing, you know?
mm,
Like why do you need to have joy on something that's oh so terrible, you know? And so for the longest time that was a narrative I had again and again and again. And it's been maybe about 10 years where I've like embraced my community and like find strength in my community and literally engine like a battery
yes.
my everyday finding that, like, it's like water almost for me.
Oh,
Um,
I
you
love
know?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely do. And you're right. We are a very tight knit community. And we do literally, people say, oh my gosh, you don't know her, but like there was a girl with a bionic arm. I'm like, that's my best friend.
Right.
Like, that's bestie. Don't worry about it. We
Right.
do all know each other.
Yeah.
It's so funny just to kind of see those moments of like, yeah, you're going to be in the same space as a lot of these people that we are currently looking up to, even in our adult lives.
Yeah.
And for me, actually, it took me a couple years after I lost my arm to be like, wait a minute, I can still be an actor and have a
Yeah.
disability. But the thing for me that I love and hang on to the most is the fact that it's way less competitive in a good way.
Mhm.
Like, not saying, running for, Mercy Bodie's role as Nessa Rose wasn't competitive, but when
No.
we get those roles and we see the people authentically cast in them get it, it makes that role and that movie and that thing so much more meaningful to us, which is why I think I
Mm.
cried as hard as I did when I saw Wicked because it
Yeah.
was just that it's exactly what we want. It's what audiences want. We wanna see each other win, and we talked a little bit about disabled joy, like, that's it for me.
Exactly, exactly, and I even told her yesterday too, I genuinely am I don't think I don't think anybody else would have done a better job. I
Mhm.
genuinely
I
do
agree.
believe that. It was just so perfect and, she's also a theater, like, kid, and she also found so much joy in singing and acting and, just seeing that this is her first job, essentially,
Yeah.
is so powerful because it almost gives such a validation to us who want to make it at that level
Mhm.
of work like, see that and saying, "Hell yeah." I mean, I knew it was possible, but I really now know it's possible. There's no excuse for it not to be at this caliber, you
100%.
know?
Yeah, I
Um
feel the same way about their casting Cynthia Erivo as,
uh,
Elphaba, because also on Broadway, she's never been played by a full-time, woman of color, I think, or African
mhm,
American woman. I'm
mhm,
not
mhm,
sure which one is specific, but
mhm.
I think that both Cynthia and Marissa's role in this movie, I pray that is going to have an influence on Broadway, and as if it isn't
I
already
hope
in
so.
other shows. Yeah, me too. I just saw Tony Lopez was in Our Town. I got to go see that on Broadway. He's a leg
Wow.
amputee, and there's a couple of actors in Our Town who are disabled, and it's not a part of the character description. They just are.
Well,
I want more of that. please.
Yeah.
We need more
And
of that.
maybe it's because I'm in the community myself, but I just don't see how hard it is to not. I just don't like,
Right?
it just doesn't make sense why. I mean, if we wanna go to the why, I couldn't, you know, if we wanna get into the why, I'll get into the why, but for me, I think that we've come so far as a community. We come so far as advocating for ourselves. I mean, I always think about Judy Human and
Oh,
the things that she had to do to just get herself to be heard. And she didn't do it for herself. She did it for her whole community. It
yes.
was not a one person thing. It was, we're literally all in this together, quoting High School Musical. We're all in this together and it's going to help. And we're in numbers, numbers really do count, you know?
Really do, honestly, and we're stronger together for all of these things.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me. I had such a great time chatting
Course.
with you. You're welcome back anytime, and thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me again. If you haven't already caught Little Miss Representation, you can find that on Amplitude Media's YouTube page. This next upcoming episode with Summer Carbucia is one of my favorites ever. There's a lot of talk of what disability representation on Broadway has looked like over the last 10 years, as Summer and I are both disabled media professionals in theater. So I can't wait for you to dive into that one too. Stay well again.